Hello YouTube, this is Neon. Today I'm going to be talking about the Chessboard Killer. The Chessboard Killer is one of the most fascinating serial killers that I've ever come across. In my talk titled Serial Killers, I explain how I became fascinated and of course horrified by serial killers. One of the things that makes the Chessboard Killer so fascinating was that he was not a sexual sadist. Most male serial killers, sexual gratification plays a major role. It's not always direct sexual contact. They may masturbate somewhere during the murder. They may do it afterwards, thinking about the murder. More often than not, there is direct sexual violation, assault as part of the murder, whether it's before or after they've killed the person, the poor innocent victim. With the Chessboard Killer, he was not motivated. He was not a sexual sadist. I don't remember his name. I went through that phase where I watched hundreds, either I watched or read the stories of hundreds of serial killers. I went through that phase a long time ago, and I don't really remember this dude's name. He is known as the Chessboard Killer. He is a Russian serial killer. Okay, that in and of itself to me is fascinating because Russia really felt that they didn't have serial killers. They really, the former USSR felt that serial killers were born out of capitalism. It was the inherent evil of capitalism that produced serial killers. And in fact, Russia has had serial killers. Serial killers exist all over the planet because I've seen videos, documentaries, of serial killers all over the world. Africa, Asia, Australia, Southeast Asia, Europe. There might even be some in Greenland and Antarctica for all I know. So that kind of proved them wrong. With other Russian serial killers, it has played a role in their being able to get away with so many murders because they had been considered an individual murder. Okay, so with the Chessboard Killer, his motive was fame, which is interesting because most male serial killers, 90%, it's the initial motive is sexual gratification or sexual sadism. As they say, hedonism burns itself out. If these people kill enough people, it will almost get boring, and then becoming famous becomes a goal for them in the end, after they've killed whatever number of people that they need to kill so that it becomes boring. Then they want to be famous. They want to see their names in the newspaper and on television, and they want the whole world to be afraid to go out at dark, and they're the only one who knows that they are the boogeyman. They want that kind of fame. The media doesn't play into that much. In my opinion, they don't play into that much and give them all of this attention. However, with the Chessboard Killer, that was his intention from the beginning. He wanted fame. He killed men, women, and children. Very interesting because most people think of serial killers as Ted Bundy or John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy killed white males underage males. That was his main victim. Ted Bundy, white, brunette, women. And that tends to be the case where serial killers, they kill a particular race, gender, and they may kill, their victims all may look alike. But there are other serial killers, that's not really the case. And with Chikatilo is another, and I think he's a Ukrainian serial killer, and I'm not, the Chessboard Killer is not, that's a different serial killer. I don't remember the Chessboard Killer's name. But he killed men, women, and children, so that makes him fascinating as well. Now, his original modus operandi for killing was he would throw people through these well-like structures that went down into the drainage system of a park outside of Moscow, a park that's 9 square miles, something like 8 or 9 times the size of Central Park, that really could not be manned properly. It was just too big, heavily forested, and much of it was sort of raw, natural, right? So he would take people out to the areas where nobody was at, and he would connive people to look down these drains for something that he had hidden there or something, and then he would throw them down the drain. Moscow's water flowed underground under this park and out to the North Sea, or the, I don't know what sea, a sea that's north of Russia. And in this particular documentary, they were saying that the waters could flow 40 miles an hour or more. So they said many people would die instantly. Near freezing water that's rapid, and they're thrown who knows how many feet or meters. Many of them would die immediately. And because they would travel so many hundreds of miles before they were, or maybe thousands of miles, before they were spit out into the ocean, they said that in all likelihood it would have only been bones or small parts of the person would have actually come out. And it's unlikely that the bodies could have ever been found. None of them ever were, by the way. One woman survived. She was 7 months pregnant, and he threw her down a particular, one of these vertical drains. He threw her down. Apparently it wasn't deep enough to cause any bones or fractures. She was able to, in pitch black darkness, she was able to find the ladder that led out. I'm assuming there were all kinds of insects and whatnot. And he threw her out during the day, and it was like 10, 12 hours later before she was finally able to find her way out. Thank God. She had reported it, and because of some flaws in the Russian, well, forgive me Russia, I hate to say Russian, but this particular Russian police officer who she reported it to, there were some flaws in the way he managed it, and they should have caught the Chessboard Killer then, and they didn't. Now, this way of killing proved to be so effective that nobody even knew that, and I believe it was like 20 people, nobody knew that these people had been murdered. They just knew that they were missing. Men, women, and children. He wasn't making the papers, and he was very disappointed. So he began to change his MO for how he killed. Now, really quickly, I want to say, one of the worst tragedies is that he invited a homeless person. I hate that terminology. A man who was homeless. He invited this gentleman up to his place, apparently to help him out, and he ended up throwing this guy out of the balcony in his place. Nobody saw him do this, but people did see him fall. People did see him land. And people just assumed this poor guy who was homeless had committed suicide out of desperation. So this man could kill people essentially right in front of people, and they wouldn't necessarily know. So the way that his MO changed, I will talk about momentarily. They call him the Chessboard Killer because his goal was to kill the same number of people as there are squares on a chessboard. Fascinating, because in Russia it was one of the few ways, in the former Soviet Union, one of the few ways that a person could achieve fame and fortune coming out of obscurity and poverty was becoming a really good chess player. It was kind of like, you know, even if you're Russian, forgive me if I'm incorrect, but it's kind of like one of the Russian pastimes is playing chess. Many of the best chess players throughout history come from Russia. So he takes this national pastime and he really perverts it. Very perverse, very evil, and very wicked. And they suspect that he came very close to killing the number of people that was equal to the number of squares on a chessboard. They believe that he killed around 60 or more people, which would make him one of the most prolific serial killers in history. He changed his MO since, again, in Moscow, people, like in New York, people come missing all the time. And the authorities assumed the person just ran away or wanted to get away and just wanted to break contact with their family and friends. That happens. I did that and my family reported me missing. So nobody connected anything. So what he began to do was kill older men in this same park. I forget the BS he did to lure them to walk them away. He would bash their brains in, and this idiot would take a vodka bottle and ram the vodka bottle into the part of their head that he had bashed in. Obviously, Russia invented vodka. So for him to take part of the Russian heritage, if you will, and incorporate that into this new MO for killing is very, very, very perverse. At this point, he's mainly killing older men who are retired, and they go to the park to play chess and just to socialize. When he was throwing people down the drainage system, it was men, women, and children. So he killed maybe another 20 people in this way, this horrifying way. Eventually he killed a young woman who was a single mom. She was probably middle-aged, like me. She was probably in her 30s or 40s. I'm in my 40s. And that's when he got caught. He killed her in the same way. Prior to killing her, he was only killing elderly men. So he did get his fame and fortune. Not fortune. Why did I say fortune? He did get a lot of fame. One tragedy is that a lot of the people that were never found that he had thrown down these drains, some of the people never believed that he had killed their family members. They just simply couldn't believe it, and they felt that their son, one guy, he felt his son was going to come back home. He just couldn't accept that his son had been killed. Even though this killer was able to, you know, point out who he had killed, and these people had been missing and never seen again. He did get his fame. I don't know if he got the death penalty. I don't remember what the consequences were, but for these reasons, he does stand out as unique amongst serial killers for the reasons that I mentioned. There's many other fascinating things about him as well, I'm sure. It comes as no surprise that there was no regret. There was no repentance. He was perfectly fine with causing the destruction that he caused. He wanted fame, and ultimately he did get that fame. Very perverse, very evil. That's about it. So, if you liked this video and found it interesting, please like, subscribe, share, comment commercials, recommend my videos. And if you want to know more, feel free to Google him. There's probably multiple documentaries on the Chessboard Killer. So, and you can look up that. You can look him up on. You can look him up under that name. Just look up Chessboard Killer. Best wishes.